Hosta la Vista is brought to you by Green Hill Hostas.
Welcome back to Hosta la Vista. This weekend, Mandy and I are at the Midwest Regional Hosta Society Convention surrounded by Hosta people, beautiful plants, and all the fun that comes with a Hosta gathering. So while we're away, we wanted to bring you something a little different. We thought it would be fun to revisit 4 memorable conversations from Season 1 with hybridizers David Teager, Olga Petryszyn, Rawson, and David Bowe. Each of these guests is at a different stage of their hybridizing journey, and together they paint a fascinating picture of what it takes to bring a new hosta into the world. From making that very first cross to evaluating seedlings, naming a plant and registering it with the American Hosta Society, working with tissue culture labs, and eventually seeing it offered for sale, you'll hear firsthand how it all happens. The truth is that every hosta has a story, and behind every registration is someone who spent years making selections, taking chances, and waiting patiently to see what would emerge. This episode is a celebration of those people and the creativity, persistence, and passion that help keep the world of hostas moving forward. So whether you've hybridized hostas yourself or you've never given a second thought to how a new cultivar comes to be, we think you'll find these conversations both entertaining and enlightening. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. And if you're attending the convention this weekend, keep your eyes out for us. We'd love to say hello. Let's start off with David Teager.
He's helped demystify the world of Hosta hybridizing, been a go-to guide on plant health, and served as a respected judge at Hosta shows nationwide. If there's a corner of the Hosta world he hasn't touched, we haven't heard of it.
From his popular YouTube videos to his generous mentoring spirit, he's helped so many of us grow both plants and knowledge.
We're thrilled to welcome David Teager.
Welcome, David. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, happy to do this.
Well, let's start at the beginning. What first got you hooked on hostas, and when did you realize you had a real interest in growing them from seeds?
So there's some good stories. The first is that I grew up as the son of a farmer's daughter. So gardening was always sort of in our blood. We had gardens everywhere, and we moved to a house that sometime in the 1940s had a stand of Hosta plantaginia planted that we knew as the August lily. So once I recognized this was a hosta, that was kind of always in the back of my mind from when I was a kid. Then when my husband and I bought our first house, we had the advantage of living near the spectacular Longwood Gardens, which had at that time a really nice hosta display garden. We learned later it had been established in conjunction with the Delaware Valley Hosta Society. So we saw hostas there, and the centerpiece of this garden was this massive hosta labeled as fluctuans variegated. We know that now as sagae.
Oh,
and we're
okay.
like, that's a hosta too. And there were smaller ones and ones that had the really dark purple flowers and different types they had there. So we bought a house that had shade on the property, and there were a few hostas there that the previous owner had planted. And we said, so let's, start looking into hostas as a way to garden this space. And I was a graduate student doing research at the time, and the school library had a book on hostas. It was the Hosta book by Paul Aden. Now, tucked into this book, many, many pictures of hostas, and exactly one picture that had people in it. And the people were Warren and Allie Pollock from Wilmington, Delaware, which is where we lived. So it said obliquely that they had a house on Surrey Lane in Wilmington, Delaware. Well, we got in our car one March day and drove out to Surrey Lane to see if, even before the hostas were up, we could figure out what house this was. So we're casing the joint once we'd figured out what it was and said, oh, this must be a really nice garden. And up pull the Pollocks in their big Cadillac. So we said, well, okay, we have to introduce ourselves. And Warren was so gracious to show us all of the hostas that he had, most of which he kept in pots in his garage over winter. And so we exchanged information, and he told us about the Delaware Valley Hosta Society. And a week later, we got a note in the mail that said, "We have bought you 1 year's membership to the Delaware Valley Hosta Society, and here's when the first meeting will be." So that was how we got hooked on hostas. We started right at the top with Dr. Pollack, who I believe at the time was still the editor of the Hosta Journal, and has continued to write a column for the Hosta Journal but I think he's up into near number 60 for his series on what's in a Hosta name.
Wow.
So we started at the top with that sort of mentorship, and started buying hostas. The first mail order purchase we made was of a fluctuans variegated, and it's now the centerpiece of our garden. We now live in Pennsylvania, just across the state line from Delaware.
See, look at all the good things that come when you stalk somebody. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Well, your YouTube channel, and I have it in here as David Teager, Hosta Seedlings and Hybridizing. Is that the name of your
The channel is really just under my name.
Oh, okay.
And those are 3 of the featured videos.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So that sort of came about because, well, the first thing that happened was my mother was getting older and was unable to travel out to visit our garden. And as I said, I grew up with her as a gardener as inspiration. So one year we'd had a tour here, and I made a video that day of what the gardens look like because the weather was perfect and whatever. And I'd never done the whole editing video. And it turned out to be, I think it's about 40 minutes long, that I did it in 2 pieces, just 2 takes. And it started racking up views. And I'm like, oh, this was easy. So I said, maybe, and then I was like, are there any videos out there to help people learn how to hybridize? And there weren't. There were a few that I found that were honestly just really unhelpful. They were so basic and contained so much misinformation that I'm like, let me just do this. Yeah. So I thought, I'll do a 3-part series so that they're reasonable sized chunks. I think they're about 15 minutes each, which I thought was a reasonable length. And did the editing and put them out there. And again, they have proved popular. So I'm really happy that they're out there. People keep saying, will you do a 4th one? And unfortunately, because of my vision loss, I'm unable to do that sort of editing work. Mm-hmm. So I think it told enough of a story in showing people how to select the hostas that you want the seeds from and how to get the seeds, then how to plant the seeds at the time you want to do it, and used a technique that is one of the more popular. There are lots of ways that people do start seeds, but the solo cup method worked well for me, and so that's the one I passed along. And then, of course, there's the harder 3rd job of deciding what to keep. So culling the plants and then growing them on a little bit. Now, the genetics of hybridizing would be a 4th topic, figuring out what plants to cross and how to actually do the crossing. But I figured let people figure that out. I think that there's good information out there. You had Don Rawson on, who has that really great book about hybridizing that he put together, is the best next level sort of thing. And Josh Spiess from In the Country Garden and Gifts also has a good online tutorial dabbling into the genetics of making hosta crosses.
I need to look those up.
I was going to say, I need to get on to that. So many questions popped into my head as you were speaking. I know Mandy initially, you initially watched David's videos. Tell us about your thoughts on those, Mandy.
Well, I mean, when I first showed interest in wanting to do this, I mean, you don't know where to start. And yes, I ran across your videos on YouTube, and boy, they were so helpful. Like just telling exactly what to purchase and how to, what soil to use or potting mix, and to add the is it Captan? I don't even know how to say it, but I went and bought a jug of that, and they did great. And every year I use the same process, and every year I watch the video again just to refresh, because it's been a year, and sometimes you kind of forget stuff, and very helpful. And I still have not quite figured out how to cull them. I keep way too many, and I grow a bunch of little green ones that I probably should have thrown away, but they're just it's really a joy to do. So I really appreciate you doing those videos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. We appreciate your efforts to making hybridizing available to everyone. Next up, we're chatting with Olga Petryszyn about her amazing hybridizing work and tissue culture.
From the one and only Olga Petryszyn. Olga, welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for calling me.
Yeah. We've both grown your plants for years, and we can't believe we're actually talking to you. It's great. Well, let's start at the beginning. What first pulled you into the world of hostas?
Oh, well, okay. We can go back 56 years. How much time do we have?
As much as you need.
Well, actually, it started when I was doing my studies in Chicago at the Art Institute of Chicago. One of my professors, Bill Brinka, he taught sculpture and environmental design. He and I really became very good friends. And at one point he said, why don't you come out and visit our farm in Michigan City? So I did. And lo and behold, I see all these beautiful garden rooms and the beginning of something really phenomenal. He was a fine horticulturist. And so I would spend every weekend I could from Chicago and drive out and spend the weekend with him and his partner Basil Cross. And I was slave labor, pulling weeds, planting flowers, dragging shrubs. This is two inches too far this way. Let's dig it up again and move, cleaning up in the fall. And over the years, I learned so much on horticulture. And one year, Bill Brinka was carving out an area in the woodland, and he was taking out trees and marking out an area with ropes. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm going to create a hosta garden. And I thought, well, I kind of know what a hosta is. And all of a sudden, he had a shipment of hostas coming and had about 25 varieties, which was fascinating to me. And so helped plant them and place them. And he had the bucks to buy them, by the way, because you could spend $500 on a hosta because they were so rare, the varieties at that time. So I love them. And I said, Bill, you got to teach me how to hybridize these because I already knew how to do daylilies. Those were easy. And he did show me. And so I didn't have the plants. Meanwhile, I had moved about, a mile away from him. And he said, well, why don't you come over in the morning and use my plants and you can cross away whatever you want. And I did. And so over the next 2 years, I was able to create my own gene pool, grew my own seeds, and then started hybridizing. And that was in 1986. So that's where that all started.
Wow. That's so interesting. Wow.
And was Niagara Falls one of your first back in 86, or was it more coast to coast? I can't remember which one you started with.
Oh, well, it's interesting. My very first one was called Old Faithful because, and I'll tell you why. I was making a cross on a hosta by the name of Plantaginia, not knowing that Plantaginia does not take pollen. She's not going to do it. Doesn't want anything to do with the cross. I kept on crossing her and kept on crossing her. And in one pod, I had one seed. And I thought, oh, look at that. I kept that seed and grew it. And it turned into this gorgeous hosta with sort of a red petiole. And I thought, okay, I'm calling this Old Faithful because I was faithful enough to hold on to that. So, and then came Niagara Falls after that.
Oh, so wait a minute. Let me understand. David Bowe was on. He was also talking about how very difficult Plantaginia is to act as a parent, meaning the recipient for pollen, but you got one to actually grow on a Plantaginia pod?
Correct. One. Oh my gosh. And David, through the years, can break that down. You keep on breaking down the resistance, and he has done a lot of work with Plantaginia, and I congratulate him on that because they have fragrant flowers. It's beautiful.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, fragrance are your favorites, right, Mandy?
They are. I love them. And in fact, I was picking out hostas this year, and I picked out Old Faithful, which is funny because I love it too. It's a beautiful plant, very vase shaped, and it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I don't think we can go wrong with any of Olga's varieties.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, your hostas have such a signature look, bold, commanding, and a little dramatic. How would you describe your style, and how did it evolve?
Well, I like large plants because I want to see them. It has to be elegant and sturdy and have really rich color, and very important to have distinction. Once you start with a plant, like I did with Niagara Falls, let's say, and Manhattan, you got to look to you. And now you say, okay, what can I do to improve that? And you start looking around your garden and you say, do I want it to be gold? Do I want it to be blue? Do I want it to lay flat? Do I want it to be vase-shaped? You keep on crossing the two to get exactly what it is you want. And I was a nut for a sketchbook. So I sketched all kinds of ideas through the years of plants that could be created. And people thought, oh, you got to be kidding. That's not going to happen. Well, guess what? If you think it, it can happen. Not necessarily by me, but other hybridizers have come up with colors and forms that didn't think that was possible.
Yeah, very true.
That's fascinating. So, because of your art background, you were able to pre-conceptualize in a notebook what you wanted to get.
Correct.
And then caused it to almost like a, chicken before the egg before the chicken kind of situation. You planned out ahead of time and then made those crosses happen until it matched the one in your book.
Correct.
Wow.
And it's been fascinating, really. And I don't take all the credit for that. I look at our Lord and say, okay,
yeah.
I'm doing your work here. Just guide me.
Absolutely. Well, can you walk us through that process? I mean, you've kind of started a little bit, but how do you go from, the idea that's in your notebook to a seedling? I mean, you get a bunch of seedlings. How do you kind of weed through and figure out which ones you want to proceed with?
Well, obviously the seedlings, I mean, I would grow 10,000, let's say, under lights. And you have to start the process of throwing them away into the mulch pile. It has to have really good substance, number one. If it's weak, forget it. And if it's got a good, strong color, you'll see it. It's either really deep emerald green or powdery blue or a screaming yellow. I mean, you're going to see that right away. Sometimes you'll get the variegated ones, which it took me a while to figure out because it was the best kept secret from hybridizers that you have got to have a streaked hosta in order to cross onto to make a variegated hosta, whether it's variegated on the edges, in the center, or splashed. So once you figure that out, you can actually get some variegated hostas as well. The rest is using your eyes. I mean, I'm very visual, and that's part of my artistic background. So I'd pluck the ones I like the best and then pot them away and watch them for a while.
Okay, so the next question I have is, so when it comes to naming your plants, do you name them after places you have visited?
Yes and no. Many times places I've visited and some that I have not. My goal is to name a hosta for all of the states that we have. So there's some states I haven't been to, but I'll have a hosta. I think, you know what? I'll look up the state, look up what they're known for, and if it's just sort of visually matches that, I will name that. For example, Grand Canyon. It's tall. The leaves kind of stand upright. It's very thick. The veins are very deep. The throat is deep like a canyon, and it has a wave on the edges. And to me, it was very canyon-like. So I named it Grand Canyon. So that's how that goes. The Americana series, the way that started is my mother and father were from the Ukraine, and they were captured during World War II and taken to Germany and put into the camps. So they did survive that, and they were brought to Illinois on a Mennonite farm. They were sponsored to start a new life, and they worked very, very hard to become citizens and loved to be Americans. They did everything the American dream held for them. And it was my way of honoring mom and dad as Americans. So I wanted to have the Americana series. That's why I'm doing this.
That's
I
wonderful.
love it. Oh, I just love it. Well, I had a few ideas for some Americana themed names for your less than lovely plants. I've got a couple for you here. You can take them and use them. Uh, Vacant mall parking lot. Or for my friends that live in the Intercoastal Waterway, cash only toll bridge. How about that?
We've all been there.
Or giant Missouri pothole. I like that one the best.
I think pothole is good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That is really good.
Those will be the ones that end up on the recycle bin.
Yeah.
Well, back to all seriousness. You have been awarded the Eunice Fisher Distinguished Hybridizer Merit Award. Will you tell our listeners what that award represents and what it means to you personally?
Oh, gosh. Well, that was just the most honorable achievement for me. I think it was in 2013 that I received that. And that is given to recognition of outstanding achievement in Hosta hybridizing and being a member of the society who advances the genus Hosta. I was so shocked that I received that, but I had been working very hard over the years while working full time. But that's how we all work, right?
Yeah.
And it was just the highest achievement I could have had. And it was such a blessing. I just, anyway, I don't know what else to say. There's one a year that's put out there, and there's a special committee that votes on this. And you have to have had some introductions behind you and also helped others, teaching them, judging, doing seminars, that sort of thing.
Now, I am unfamiliar with who Eunice Fisher was.
Eunice Fisher was a hybridizer herself, and she was an early pioneer in the politics of hostas and promoting and building the society. In the beginning, probably started out with a dozen people, and I have no idea how many registered members there are today. It's got to be daunting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's great. I wasn't sure who Eunice Fisher was. I figured it had to have been a very prominent person, but thank you very much.
Okay, Olga, we have a couple of fun segments we like to do on the pod. This one's called Finish the Rhyme. We'll give you a stanza and you try to finish the rhyme. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. A vase-shaped clump with upright walls, dark green with ripples edged like shawls. It casts a hush through garden halls, the bold and graceful.
Niagara Falls.
Very good.
All right, the next one. This is my absolute favorite one of yours. An Ojibwe name for big water, you see. Its shiny blue leaves glide wide and free. A legend in shade, majestic and sea. The great blue-green hosta.
Gitchigumi.
Yay!
Oh,
I love the name.
I do too. And, having not grown up in Minnesota, I still remember the first time I saw Lake Superior. It was just like, you drive out of Duluth and there it is. And it just looks like this ocean in the middle of the United States. It truly is a great lake. And I love that plant. It matches the name perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great grower.
So the next question I have is, you've had some great success with tissue culturing your cultivars. I mean, I think there is probably not a listener among us that doesn't have one of your plants growing in their yard. Can you tell us a little bit about going through the tissue culture process?
Yeah, certainly. It's interesting because before there was tissue culture, a wholesaler would purchase one of your plants and they would Ross the bottom of the plant, score it like 4 times so that plant divided. And then they would take those division and wrap them up and sell them to you. And so you could buy a division for $200, $500. I missed that time, I'll tell you.
Oh.
So That's how people bought hostas. The problem was you can't get enough hostas out there for people who wanted them. So in comes tissue culture, which is a process of taking a bud, cleaning it with bleach, etc., sterilizing it, putting it in a special batch of chemicals, which I don't know what they are, and wait until it divides, and it does. And then painstakingly, that plant in that petri dish is cut apart and divided again, and then physically cut apart and divided again until you have this petri dish that has several of these tiny little buds with roots on them. And then those are placed into tubes, or maybe they're placed into a pot if they're big enough. Very laborious, a lot of hands-on. It's not like chemically you can produce all these plants instantly. But you can, once you divide one into four, you can imagine you take those four and you divide it into four again, you're multiplying very fast. And so now the public can receive a clone of your original plant. And of course, they go all over the United States and into Europe, as you know. So most of what you buy is going to be tissue culture. That's how it's done. And as far as that goes, not everything's I did went into tissue culture, probably 25 of them. Sometimes you'll have a plant that does not want to culture well. So the lab has got to play with it and say, are you multiplying or are you not multiplying? I will say coast to coast when I put that out, man, she produced like crazy. This thing took off. It grows fast. All the growers were thrilled. And so anyway, some do better than others, but those that grow slow, they're often going to command a higher price because, there's not enough to go around.
Takes more effort. Yeah, for sure. So tell us about tissue culturing Brother Stefan, because that's, at least for the two of us, one of our favorites.
Yeah.
Yes. Brother Stefan was one of those that's not on the Americana exactly, although it is my brother. And I did name him for Hosta of the Year. He worked very hard, and it was just, he was turning 50. I didn't know what to get him. He had everything he wanted. So I decided to pick out my favorite hybrid, which was that one, and I named it after him and then presented it to him for his 50th birthday. And the company called, it was Shady Oaks.
Yep.
They were a tissue culture lab in Minnesota. They had cloned it for me, and it went all over, and it became very, very popular. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous hosta.
It's beautiful.
Kind of an epic hosta, really.
It really is.
So you've been hybridizing for so long now, and your name is synonymous with the species. Have you taken other hybridizers under your wing and taught the tricks of the trade?
Yes, from the very beginning. I shared everything I could. Sometimes I'd put an ad in a local paper saying, okay, on Saturday at this time, anybody who wants to come to the garden, I'm going to teach them how to hybridize. And so I would do that consistently. And in one of my students, Bev and Dave Stegman of Chesterton, they just were enthralled, and they immediately started hybridizing. And it was really sweet because after the first couple of years, they called me and they go, would you come over to our yard? We don't know how to cull the hostas, don't know what to keep and not what. And so I spent a lot of time with them as to what to look for. And they just took off into their own program and did some beautiful hostas like Skylight, Midnight Oil, and it goes on. Just really, really contributed beautifully. Another person from Michigan, Michael Gruthius, used to drive to my home in Chesterton, and he was sort of my slave labor. He helped me pot and dig and then learned hybridizing and then took off on his own and has a massive hosta garden. And one of his beauties, I think he's called Feather Vein. Oh, it's just hosta. Yeah.
We were just looking at that one, Betsy. Remember?
Oh, it's a beautiful hosta.
Right. It looks like a giant feather. It's gorgeous.
Yes, I love it. I just love it. And there's been others in between, and more recently, there's a young man who's just a junior in high school in my neighborhood. I taught him how to hybridize, so he's been in my garden hybridizing, and so we've been growing on his seeds. And I guaranteed that if anything came out of his crosses, that it was going to be his introduction. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That just makes my teacher heart so very happy. I teach third grade, and I love hearing those stories where you get somebody in their teens into this field, because that's, gosh, another 50 years down the road. He may still be 50, 60, 70 years down the road. He may be teaching others, and,
Yes.
he learned from the best.
Yes, and we want to teach the young ones. We need the young blood coming in. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, it's time for our second fun segment, this or that. We'll toss out two choices, and you just answer on the spot. No overthinking. Just go with your gut. Are you ready to play?
Sure.
Okay. First one, coast to coast or Yosemite Valley?
No, coast to coast. That was a cross between Niagara Falls for the east and Golden Gate for the west.
Oh,
And I thought, how do I put these two together? And it came out exactly how I wanted it. Not Niagara Falls, excuse me. It was Manhattan. Manhattan, which is very textured, crinkly, and the Golden Gate was very gold. So I wanted something textured and wavy and gold. And so the two produced several seedlings, and this is the favorite one. And it's actually, I had Hans Hansen in my garden. He was looking for something that Proven Winners was looking for. So that did get patented, but he came up with the name. I said, I don't know how to name this one. He goes, easy. Coast to coast. You just did the coast to coast. I go, oh my God, you're brilliant. It was right in front of me.
that's wonderful. All right. Benedict Medal or Best in Show ribbon?
Well, I never received the Benedict Medal. That is the top honor anyone could ever do. That you have to be years into helping people with hostas and committed to promoting and serving on the boards, etc. I'm just not worthy of that.
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah. All right. Plant sale elbowing or exhibit table admiration?
I hate being in crowds. So I'm going to go with exhibit table admiration. When I go through the cut leaf show, I get to see hostas I've never seen before. And it's so thrilling. And of course, I'll take pictures of the ones I want. Not that I'll ever get all of them, but you have to admire what people can grow and how beautiful they are.
Yeah, that's very true. All right. Visit which national park? Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls?
Grand Canyon.
Okay.
With the vastness, the changing of the colors, hands down, Grand Canyon. Yeah. Wet is okay, but it's often cold and raining every time I go to Niagara.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Seedlings, slow grower with perfect form or the fast grower with wild potential?
Well, at my age, I go with the wild potential fast grower. If there's a trait in there that I really like, I can always slow it down with this form with another hosta. Yeah, I'd go with the fast grower wild potential.
Okay. All right. Last one. Speak at the conference or attend incognito?
Public speaking is always difficult for me. I think I'd rather attend incognito, even though my husband always says, you're the hosta rock star. And I said, wrong. And I said, okay, but you're my hosta roadie.
That's great.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Well, Olga, thank you so much for joining us today. Your work continues to shape the hosta world in ways we are all grateful for. It has been an absolute joy talking with you. Do you have any final takeaways you would like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I would say buy mature plants from a reputable nursery. And if it's not growing well in your garden, dig it up and put it in a different spot because it'll tell you whether it likes to be there or not.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking I've got 2 or 3 I need to move probably today.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is to remember to feed them. They love to eat. I fertilize mine at least twice during the growing season.
Oh, and what do you use?
Well, since I have so many, I use something pretty reasonable, like triple 12, something that I can grab. It's granular, put it around the plants, and they're perfectly happy for that.
Okay.
If you want to really speed them up, then you're going to spend more money on a Miracle Grow or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will never not love Olga's plants. She is supremely talented. We had a chance to sit down with Don Rawson and talk hybridizing, and he had lots of insights on crossing plants. Enjoy. Welcome, Don. It is a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
So, for folks new to your work, would you tell us a little bit of how you first got into hosta hybridizing?
Well, I've grown hostas for decades, so I developed a love for hostas. Actually, when I was just a kid, my mother grew a few hostas that she was given from some friends. And then in the 1980s, I saw some hostas and at someone else's house, and I just fell in love with them. And I thought, well, I'm going to get all the hostas there are. I'm going to find them. And this is actually before the age of the internet, so it was more difficult. But I said, I'm going to find all the hostas, and I love these things, and I'm going to get one of everything. And so that's how I got into hostas. And then when we built our house in 1992, we were looking for some plants to landscape around the house. And I had already had maybe a dozen hostas, and I just began collecting more. And then I'm not sure how I developed an interest in hybridizing. I probably, in the mid-1990s, saw other people that were growing hosta seedlings. And that's something that I thought I'd give a try. And so I just started growing hosta seedlings, mostly open pollinated seed, in the mid to late 1990s. And it all is downhill from there.
So it sounds like you prefer open pollinated to picking your parents for your seedlings?
Well, initially that's what I did. But then probably maybe 6 or 8 years after that, maybe around 2005, I became more serious about my goals for making crosses, and I began making intentional crosses. So for the last, maybe 10 to 15 years, I grow very few open pollinated seed. I make thousands of crosses during the summer. So there's not a day that goes by, a morning that goes by, unless it's an emergency, then I'm not out in the garden for 3 or 4 hours making crosses.
Wow.
So in a good summer for hybridizing, I'll cross between 10 and 11,000 flowers and mark every single one.
Wow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yep.
And I hear the morning is the time to do that, correct?
Right. So I'll protect some hostas. I have hundreds of breeding plants potted up, and I'll maybe bring in the ones that I want to work with. I'll bring them in the night before into my basement, but then I'll go out in the morning. I'll be out there by 6 o'clock in the morning, just like I was this morning, and I'll start making crosses outdoors. And I'll do that for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll come back in the basement and do the ones I brought inside and put those back outdoors after I'm done.
Wow.
So
Gosh.
then I'll collect the seed in the fall, and I have a document that has a running total of everything that I've done over the years, and I'll plant usually about 60 or 65 flats of seed.
Wow.
That's around 20,000 seeds. And so maybe if, we'll say maybe 75% of them will germinate and come up, and then I'll go through those and I'll end up planting in the garden about 1,800 to 2,000, and I'll throw the other 16 or 18,000 out.
Oh my gosh.
So
Goodness.
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. My wife says it's too much work, but I see it as a lot of fun.
You ought to hold a throwaway sale.
Yeah, you really should. Could make this
Let people show up with their hands like Oliver Twist and just more, please.
Yeah, well, you've probably heard that a hybridizer, a Hosta hybridizer, out of 1,000 seedlings might get 2 or 3 that really become something to look at and consider naming.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of work for the amount that you actually get that are different and unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Wow.
You've introduced over 20 cultivars, and they are anything but ordinary. Which ones do you feel closest to your heart?
Well, that's kind of like picking your favorite child, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I like all hostas for the most part, although I kind of dislike anything with thin leaf substance. So if it's thin, it doesn't really even make it in the ground. And I'll really never introduce anything that's got a thin leaf. So I like hostas that are thick. I like cupped hostas, hostas with round leaves, hostas that are extremely upright and huge. I do like hostas with long rippled leaves, as long as they're unique looking. Probably my favorite are great big hostas that are extremely puckered and maybe somewhat unruly. I just am attracted to something like that.
Can you tell that they're going to be puckered as seedlings, or is that something that really develops later as they grow?
Yeah. When they're just in the 2 or 3 leaf stage, when they're very tiny, maybe only a month or even 2 months old,
Yeah.
sometimes you can start to see it, but usually not.
Okay.
So usually as a hosta matures, you can see the hosta becoming more corrugated, and that puckering will really show up. You might not know the extent of the puckering for the first few years. Large, great big, humongous hostas, take 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years to mature. Wow. Some of them just become more and more corrugated every year. So that's the type of hosta that is my favorite, personal favorite.
Well, you're known for your rugose cup-shaped leaves. Your grandma series is truly amazing, but let's talk about catcher's mitt. Its incredible cup leaves are legendary. What's the origin story there?
Catcher's mitt is from the pod parent is another seedling of mine called mulehide. And mulehide has really thick, round, cupped leaves. It's a great plant for passing on thick, round, cupped leaves that are very corrugated. And mulehide is out of Don's gator hide, which also has thick leaves, but gator hide, the leaves are more so long and narrow and pointed. So, that's the story behind Catcher's Mitt. And Catcher's Mitt is quite a unique hosta. Josh at In the Country Garden and Gifts has an exclusive agreement on that to introduce it. So I think it's starting to become available in limited numbers. So
I'll have to keep my eye open for that one.
Yeah.
Catcher's mitt is really, really cupped, and the cups stand more so vertical. So you're not going to get much debris falling in it because the cup is like vertical.
Oh.
And has a white back, medium, maybe medium-large hosta. It is actually variegated. So if you look inside the cup, it does have a dark green margin on it.
Oh,
really?
I didn't know that. Huh.
But you don't notice it unless you look in there because all you see is the white backs standing up straight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Listeners, if you have not seen this, go look it up on the Hosta Library, because you see much more of the bottom side of the leaf than you do the inside of the leaf. It's really a remarkable plant.
Wow. Well, gator boll and gator hide have really caught people's attention with their major rugose leaves and shape. What are you chasing in those hybrids?
Yeah, I'm chasing that really corrugated look. The puckers on those are really large puckers, which I like large puckers rather than small puckers. So I'm looking for a lot of large puckering, intense puckering, and combine that with really thick leaves. So gator boll is in production, but it is really quite a unique looking hosta too, kind of like catcher's mitt is. Gator boll is a really dark green, nice pure white flowers, but it's extremely cupped, at least 4 inches, and it has a really thick, deeply cupped and deeply corrugated leaf on gator boll. So that's one, Betsy, if you like corrugated cupped leaves, gator boll would be, you'd find that fascinating.
I'm going to write that one down right now.
Yeah, I'll have to find that one too.
Favorites. Before we move on to the next question, are you finding that some of these are fertile? Are they able to be bred fairly easily, these really cupped rugose ones, or is it limited?
As far as I know, all of them are fertile, both pod and pollen parents on these cupped ones. I'm trying to think of any that I've put out that aren't fertile. I think everything, one hosta that we'll talk about shortly is sail away, and that's pod sterile, but I think all these cupped and rugose ones are fertile. So that's good news for the hybridizer.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
Well, what's the future for purple and red-leafed hostas, and are there any new crosses in the works?
Well, that's an exciting area, and there are a lot of hybridizers that have been working on that. Bob Solberg, Jeff Moore, it all goes back to Arthur Reed in the 1990s, who introduced a lot of the red-leaved ones. But Doug Beilstein has some great stuff coming. I'm working on it, but I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. So just a small area of my hybridizing program is focused on the red and purple-leafed hostas. So probably the most exciting one that you'll see come to market here in the next year to 2 years is that red ninja.
Yeah.
It's actually here in the States now, but it's not on the market yet. But that is an amazing hosta. The red shows up around the 1st of June, and then that red center stays that color all summer long.
Wow.
So I do have a couple that I'll probably be introducing soon. I'll be sending Purplicious into production this fall, and that'll be nice. There are some other seedlings that I'm looking at, but we'll just have to see where that goes. I think what we're going to see in the future is more of these red and purple-leaved hostas that maintain their color longer into the summer. And we're going to begin seeing some that are variegated, maybe with a red or purple center, or maybe a margin. I know Josh out of In the Country Garden and Gifts, he has a couple. And there are some others that are showing up that are they're sports of either first blush or bloodline. So I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see some other colors besides red and purple show up too. There are some that some of my friends are working with that have bronze colored leaves, almost like brown, and a few that have pink colored leaves.
Ooh.
So
wow.
I've even seen some that have yellow leaves with pink edges.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Sounds amazing.
A lot of things to try, but we have to motivate some of our hybridizers to get into that area and give it a shot to see what the potential is.
When we had David Bowe on, he made a reference to the fact that Hosta breeding is still in its infancy, realizing that the American Hosta Society was only started in 1968, that wasn't that long ago, and how he made a reference to the field of hybridizing and breeding plants has so many potential channels to come in the next 100 years or something like that. And this sounds kind of like that same idea. Interesting.
That's true also because out of about 38 to 41 species, Hosta species, we're only working with about 28 of that. Only about 2/3 of the species we're actually making ourselves available to. So as hybridizers, it'd be great if we could get somewhat more of these species in our crosses. Out of the 28, there's some species like Ceboliana that we're working with a lot. Mm-hmm. It's being overused. And there's a few species out of those 28 that we're not working with much at all. But then, we're working with 2/3 out of all species, and it'd be great if we could get the other third to work with those also. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there.
So the third that we aren't using, is it because they're difficult to breed, or they have undesirable characteristics?
The problem is that some of those species maybe we've identified and have descriptions of, might even have samples of, but our samples might be 40, 50 years old, and they've never been removed from their habitat. So they're not in the Western world here. Oh. A few of them have been imported here in the States and Europe, but the samples that we have don't match the actual description of the plant that's over in China, Korea, and Japan. There are a few species that we haven't availed ourselves to because they're just plain looking hostas and we don't think much of them. They're not very, we might not think they're garden worthy or they're very interesting. So we're just, a plant like, Hosta jonesii. That's available in a few collections, but nobody's worked with it yet. So there's a few that we do have, we haven't worked with, we just ignored, but most of the ones that we're not working with is because we don't have them. They're still over in the countries where they grow.
Interesting. Okay. Well, again, keeping on this same vein of thought, do you think that this kind of innovation will change what the average gardener expects from hostas in the next 10 years?
Well, yeah, it will, especially as some of these red and purple leaf varieties come to market and become widespread. I mean, we're going to see quite a transformation, I believe. When people go to a garden center here in 10 years from now, we'll have a variety of hosta colors to choose from, more than this green, white, gold, and green. So it will change the public's opinion. They'll expect to see hostas in all colors of the rainbow, kind of like you go and buy a coleus or some other foliage plant, So it will change a lot, especially, too, as we make improvements with flowers, get more double-flowered varieties available, and so on. But mainly this development that we're seeing in red and purple leafed hostas, that'll be a radical improvement, and that'll change everyone's opinion about hostas.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Keep the weirdo seedling or compost it?
If it looks weird, that's the one I'm going to keep.
Okay.
So if I have, we'll say 5 flats of all the same cross, I'm going to pick out a dozen out of 5 flats that are the most different from all the rest, because those are the ones that are going to be the most different from each other, and that I might actually find something that's really cool.
Sure.
So,
well, if it catches your eye, right? I mean, if it catches your eye, it's going to catch somebody else's eye too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I figure if someone else makes that same cross, they're going to keep, the ones that I'm throwing away, the really common ones. So I want to work with hostas that no one else is working with, and then I'm going to keep the weirdest ones out of that cross. So,
Well, before we go, we would love to zoom out and just tap in on some of that long view that you have on hostas. You've been doing this for so long, you know more about hostas than most of us will ever learn. What do you think the hosta world will look like 20 years from now?
well, in the last 20 years, we've made remarkable improvements. I mean, everything from blue mouse ears to something the size of Empress Flu. And some of these blushers, like First Blush and Bloodline and others. So in the next 20 years, we're going to see a lot of new developments, just like the last 20 years. There's going to be some hostas that'll be larger than Empress Flu. There's going to be some that are a lot redder or more purple than Bloodline. There's going to be some really beautiful variegated hostas coming to market, and some with amazing flowers. So, yeah, I'm excited. We don't know what we're going to see in 20 years, but it's going to be a different landscape than what we have right now. So, it's exciting.
Next, we caught up with noted hybridizer David Bowe, who explained how to go about registering a hosta and how he gets his plants into tissue culture. For listeners unfamiliar with the process, how does one go about registering a hosta? What's that journey like?
Well, you have to take notes on your plant, and you have to get it at the right time, and you have to measure things that you would never think of. So if you want to register a plant, it's going to probably take you a year or two to do it because you aren't going to have the data you need. So get a form and look at all you need. They want the length of the flower. They want to know what day the flowers open. They want to know what day they stop flowering. They want to know how tall is the scape, what color is the flower inside and out. Are the leaves glaucous or shiny on the back? What's the largest leaf, height, width? What are the number of vein pairs in the leaf? It's the dates on the flowers that are the trickiest, because if for some reason it doesn't flower the year that you want to register, you're out of luck for that year.
Wow.
But they are consistent from year to year. They will tend to bloom the same week from year to year. And within the garden, if you have 2 copies of it, they'll bloom almost the same day in different parts of your yard. You have to take notes. And I got a little notebook that I started putting data down in my notebook. I know you can't see this, but I brought it with me. But every page, I had a page describing a plant.
Wow.
What the first date that it bloomed, what name am I thinking of, what's the cross, what's my identifying, gave them numbers, and then I described the leaf, and then they want to know things like, is the leaf folded, is it wavy, is it ruffled, just things you don't even think of. You want to look at those lists and just try to get all the data you can on any plant you want, just to get the practice, if that's what you want. Once you understand what all the terms are and what it means, is it rugose? People may not know what that means. It means, is it the rumples and bumples on it? Is it shiny? Is it, how shiny? Is it really shiny? If you have what is shiny?
Yeah, really.
Is it dull? Is it, so there's things that you get to know as you get more and more plants as to how to describe it. But then you have to have a picture of the flower. You have to submit it with a picture of the leaf, the front, the back. You have to have a picture of the whole clump. So when you submit these things, they want a lot of information about the plants. Actually, doing the registration, if you have all the information, is very fast. But gathering the information is what takes all the time.
Huh. Do they also want to see a mature clump of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could take 5, 6, 7 years for it to reach maturity.
Yeah, most people recommend not registering it until it's, 4 or 5 years old. That's not an absolute requirement, but you hate to register a plant and then have it die.
Yeah.
No.
And then you've used the name. No one else can use that name. No one's ever going to see it in their garden. For me, I wanted to make sure that I made several copies of a plant before I registered it. I can divide it and not kill it. That can be a problem too. So for me, I tended to register them after I had divided them a few times. So I didn't have one giant clump of anything, because I couldn't stand not taking a piece of it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. How many hostas have you officially registered at this point?
didn't count, but I think I have over 30. I made a list in order, and I made a decision to try to put a bow in the name when I started doing these things. I started out sort of naming things with no particular pattern to it, but then I thought, you don't really name a plant after yourself. That's considered, tacky. So, and anyway, the first plant that I decided to put a name with a bow in it was bottle rockets. I had this plant that looked like it had fireworks coming out of it, the red petioles and the little purple flowers that looked like ladyfingers, like the firecracker kind of things. Well, there were already Hostas names that had that reference. So the bottle rockets I thought of, and then I thought, it's got a bow in it. Bottle rockets, that'd be a good name for that one. And that one grew like crazy. But anyway, then I started trying to put bow names on most everything. And at the end, I started thinking of David Bowe references because I thought that was pretty funny. And I have a sense of humor. So some of these things I just thought were funny enough that they would be catchy. So anyway, in order of registration, Summer Rainbow was registered in 2010 by Chris Wilson of Halson's Gardens. He and I co-registered that one. Mercy Beaucoup, Cupid's Bow, Bohemian Queen, Bottle Rockets, Cinnabon, Bowflex, Purple Bow Tie, Beaujolais Wine, Limbo Rock, Bordeaux, Beau Brummel, Chic Boutique, Beau Bells, Peter Bold, Boy Wonder, Winter Rainbow, Boba Fett, Bebop, Boysenberry, Bora Bora, Mambo, Herringbone, Lambeau Field, Beau Soleil, Bogus Dude, Boiling Hot, Bon Appetit, Botany Bay, Oxbow, Starboard Bow. Starboard Bow has two bows in it because it's board and bow.
Oh, yeah.
Then I did a couple of David Bowie references with Gene Genie and Spiders from Mars. And I have a lot of names that I didn't register. One of them that's pretty funny is Divine Bovine, which was suggested to me by my friend Bill Watterson, who's the cartoonist that did Calvin and Hobbes. He says, you gotta name.
Oh, yeah. I recognize the name.
He says, you gotta name something Divine Bovine, which means holy cow. So,
that sounds like something from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, I love that one.
So I have a plant with that name. I don't have it in my notes that I've registered it, but
I noticed that Beau Brummel can be found at a few specialty hosta suppliers now. So how do you go about getting your hostas to growers for sale?
I've been going to the national conventions for a long time, since 2004. And I got to know people, and I just started asking around, how do you do this? Mark Zillis, I got to know him. He had a TC nursery. Josh Spees from In the Country Garden and Gifts. Rob Mortko, Bob Solberg. Asking them, what do you do? How do you do this? I met people through Facebook, the Hosta groups. And Bob more or less told me how he likes to introduce things, and he'll do a deal where he'll give you a percentage. It's all different, basically. You have to talk to different people and find out what they want as a way of doing it. Josh Spees approached me about doing a Chic Boutique because he'd been seeing the pictures on Facebook, so he paid for that one to be tissue cultured, and then I got a royalty on it. And Bob Solberg has bought some plants and just paid me a flat fee. But by getting to know the people and finding out how they're doing it, and
that's great. That's great. Do you have many that have been tissue cultured?
Well, the first one was Summer Rainbow. That was tissue cultured in about 2010, I guess. 2014, it made it into the catalog at Halson's. We made 1,000 copies of that plant. And that went all over the world now. Summer Rainbow is great. It's a sport of winter snow with a real dark green center. It's a giant plant.
Wow.
Fantastic plant. The Beau Brummel was tissue cultured. It didn't tissue culture really well, but I think they got about 200 plants out of it maybe. So that one went to TC. I tried to do Bogus Dude. It failed fairly badly. They got like 3 plants out of it that were true.
Oh.
That one was abandoned. Chic Boutique, we tried to tissue culture. It didn't make it through the process. So that one's super rare. That's the fragrant
okay.
Man's Treasure times Planagenea, fragrant. Well, Bob Solberg's going to put Bo Derek in. That one's not registered. That was my first great bow name that I haven't registered, but
I'm just thinking for listeners who might not know what a TC is, can you briefly explain that?
well, tissue culture is where a lab takes your plant and they take a new bud that's forming in the fall usually, and they dissect it off the plant and they peel the layers off of it like an onion under sterile conditions, and they put it into a growth auger with vitamins and minerals or whatever the hosta needs to grow, and they can't have any bacteria or fungus in it or it'll kill it. So they have to get a piece of it, and then they put it in all these hormones. It grows, and then they take it out under sterile conditions, divide it up into 3 or 4 pieces, and do it again. Once they get that initial thing started with the sterile environment after the peeling part, that's the most critical part. Once they get that to work without any germs in it, they can then put it into test tubes, and they grow without roots in this auger, and they grow and grow and grow. They divide them again, and then if they get 3 divisions every few weeks that they can divide, or maybe a month at a time, it'll multiply fast, and within a year they can have 1,000 plants. If they keep going, normally they'll go shorter than that and get a few hundred at a time.
That's
and
fascinating.
Then you give them hormones to put roots on them when they're done with that. Then they go to a grower to get them big enough to sell.
And that next step that's where the liner comes in, is that right?
Yeah, liners are plants that have come out of tissue culture and are put into a very small little bit of soil, and they grow to the point where they don't need to be in 100% humidity anymore. They can get sent to a grower who will grow them to the size that people are willing to buy. I wouldn't want to buy a liner because they're so easy to kill. You got to have a greenhouse or some really good system to grow them.
That's fascinating. I tried to read up on this process, and Mark Zillis has some information out there, but for the average person like me, it's really hard to find information on how tissue culturing actually happens. So I'm loving this. This is great for just knowledge for me to know about.
What advice would you offer to a home gardener who's just starting to cross hostas or any plants in their backyard?
The most important thing is learn how to do record keeping and be prepared to grow a lot of plants. That was something that I kind of struggled with early on, is I didn't have a way to grow the seeds very well. I didn't have grow light system like I did later on. I didn't have a uniform size of cup, or because I didn't want to spend any money on this. I just think, this is just a hobby. I'm just doing this for fun. Well, eventually you have to invest a little money in having uniform size lights and trays, and because the plants all have to grow at the same time under the same conditions. So you have to get a little bit scientific about it. It's nice if you can have a mentor who will walk you through it or show you how they did it. In fact, the best, and with Facebook, you have access to all that kind of thing. Every hybridizer that I've ever known has been super happy to share their techniques with other people and learn from other people. It's really nice. With keeping track of what crosses you did, for me, I want to know the 2 parents. I think it's really cool when you have a hybrid where you can see the traits from both parents. To me, that's much more important than just having a really cool plant that someone grew from an open pollinated seedling. Like I had plants that grew in my yard that just popped up, from seeds that blew there in the wind.
Yeah.
Fabulous looking, big, strong, green hostas. Like, wow, I wish I had hybridized this one, But to me, it just didn't have the value of knowing. It's frustrating to me to not know the name of a plant. So record keeping, either in a notebook or writing it down, and the other thing is make sure you have pens or markers that don't fade in the sun. It's another mistake that's easy to make.
Very true.
Well, thanks to all of you for listening to this special episode of Hosta la Vista.
If you like what you've heard, find us on Facebook at Hosta la Vista Podcast. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode.
Until next time, thanks for listening and...
Hasta la vista.
Baby.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much. This was a great episode.
Special thanks to Green Hill Hostas for sponsoring Season 2 of Hosta la Vista. Green Hill Hostas, home of great new hostas.
And In the Country Garden and Gifts. This is Hosta Country. Visit their website at inthecountrygardenandgifts.com.